So he marched into the East Room last night. Let's talk about this, Donald Gorsuch. By the way, did you? I don't know whether it bothered you the way it bothered me. This, again, was a Donald Trump show. It was all about me, Donald Trump, not so much about Gorsuch. Did you notice first of all, it's always, I've been there, I was there with when President Obama announced his nomination of Sonia Sotomayor, which is a great moment, and when he introduced Elena Kagan to the world as well. The president traditionally, George Bush did the same thing with John Roberts, walks up to the podium. You don't know who it's going to be for sure. Sometimes it leaks ahead of time. But walks up to the podium in the East Room with the candidate, the nominee, by his side. Not Donald Trump. He walked up all by himself, and the first couple of minutes were just all about me. Donald Trump saying, I promised you I was going to pick the very best judge in the entire country. Yeah. See, everything's got to be superlative, right? The biggest ever, the best ever, the greatest ever, me. The last person to use that phrase, by the way, was George H.W. Bush when he said that Clarence Thomas was the very best judge in the entire country. He's lucky the press corps didn't laugh out loud at him at that point. Donald Trump said that he had just delivered, quote, the most transparent judicial selection in history. I'm a man of my word, he said. I promised you I would appoint somebody from that list of 21, and I did again. So aren't I great? Aren't I great? And by the way, what a big surprise, right? Oh, yeah. Weren't you all just surprised the way I did this?
So was that a surprise? Was it?
Yeah. The showman. There's the showman. That's what it all was. So anyhow, his pick. Here he introduces Neil Gorsuch.
Today I am keeping another promise to the American people.
My promise.
By nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch of the United States Supreme Court to be of the United States Supreme Court.
No, you got that wrong. He's
Wait,
not,
what?
Yeah, right. I mean, hello.
Of the United States Supreme Court.
No, he's
to
not
be
there
of
yet, dude.
The United States Supreme Court.
I don't think that's how it works.
Hey,
but
look at the teleprompter and get that straight. And hey, Rhett, what do we know about Gorsuch? He's 49 years old. He's on the 10th Circuit Federal Court of Appeals in Denver. And he is proudly, and he admits it, he is proudly a carbon copy of Antonin Scalia. Here's all I need to know about Neil Gorsuch to know I'd never vote for him. Well, he did say Scalia was on his mind last night, as well as a couple of others.
The towering judges that have served in this particular seat of the Supreme Court, including Antonin Scalia and Robert Jackson, are much in my mind at this moment.
Yeah. Gorsuch does tell the story about when he was skiing. He was at the top of the mountain when his cell phone went off and he got the news that Antonin Scalia had died. And he said he came right down the hill, but he could barely make it down because tears were in his eyes, and the tears in his eyes were blinding him. He wasn't able to see the slope or the moguls and everything because he was crying so hard. That's all you need to know about Anthony Gorsuch. Neil Gorsuch, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, come on.
get a grip, man.
Get a grip. Anyhow, so he says Scalia is his model. He is, like Scalia, an originalist, which means that the Constitution to him, I've heard Scalia say it many times. In person, I've heard him say it. He believes the Constitution is a dead document. We don't interpret the Constitution in terms of the issues and the crises and the values facing us today or that we live by today. No, we try to figure out the way it should have been in the 18th century, and that's the way we interpret the Constitution. It is just caca, total backwards, looking backwards. Steve Breyer has written a wonderful, wonderful book about the Constitution as a living document, and thank God that it is. That's why it's lasted so long. So when you start out with that, of course, you're going to be an arch conservative, and that's exactly what Neil Gorsuch is. He, by the way, on his court, he has never had to rule on abortion. He's never had to rule on same-sex marriage. But there are some clues we know how he would come down. First of all, Donald Trump said he would only appoint someone who had promised him that he would vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. So we know that that's in the books. That's in the bank for Gorsuch. Gorsuch is also maybe his most controversial. His most controversial decision is supporting Hobby Lobby in that crazy ruling by the Supreme Court, that because the owners of Hobby Lobby were religious conservatives, they didn't think that they should offer female employees of their company protection or coverage for contraception under the Affordable Care Act. I mean, how can you? I just don't see how that's constitutional at all. Supreme Court ruled that Hobby Lobby was right, and Neil Gorsuch at the appellate level was one of their big champions in support of anti-women's reproductive rights, basically, and letting one's religion be used as a tool for denying basic rights to American women. He also has been a very, very strong opponent of the physician-assisted suicide, which Colorado voters approved last year by initiative. So you know this guy's going to swing the court to the right. It'll be a 5-4 court. So I guess the question we get to is, what should Democrats do? The Republicans don't have enough votes. They're going to Democrats are going to filibuster. They're going to need 60 votes to get him through, which means Republicans are going to need 9 Democrats. How many should they get? Not a single Democrat. Not a single Democrat. Sean Spicer bragged yesterday, said, no, we'll get 9 Democrats. We'll get maybe more than 9 Democrats. No, they won't, and they should not. And if they do, I'll vote against every one of those Democrats.
That's it.
Attack every one of those Democrats who votes for him. There are 2 reasons why Democrats should not even consider voting for Neil Gorsuch. Number 1 is payback for Merrick Garland. And I'll say it. I know revenge, they say, is not fair. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. They stole this seat. This is not a seat that happened to open up while Donald Trump was president or Republicans in the White House. They stole this seat. And the idea that President Obama, almost a year ago, because Scalia died in February, and he turned around and invited and nominated Merrick Garland in February. So for all of that time that they refused to give Merrick Garland even a hearing in the Judiciary Committee, it's outrageous. I wouldn't give Neil Gorsuch a hearing, or I wouldn't vote for him for 4 years. They don't owe him anything. They just owe Republicans the same treatment that they got, number 1. And number 2, because he's 49 years old, that means for the next 35, 40 years, he could be taking this court to the extreme right, and all the issues you talk about, whether it's voting rights, whether it's affirmative action, whether it's women's rights, whether it's LGBT rights, whether it's workers' rights, whether it's environmental protection, all of those issues on the line, this guy could be just taking the court in that direction against all those things we believe in for the next 3-4 decades. And that is too great a risk to take. So I don't see how any Democrat can justify voting for this guy. He may be good looking, he may have gray hair, he's got a nice wife, he's got a couple of nice daughters, fine. He's apparently a champion skier, fine. Leave him in Denver, but not on the Supreme Court.
This is the telling
That's a warning to Democrats, by the way, too.
Yeah, no, it should be.
Do not vote for this guy. Don't even consider voting for this guy.
Yeah, that should be where we start.
Right.
Are you going to vote?
No.
Are you going to vote for this guy? If it's anything other than absolutely not, bring in somebody who will. That's where Democrats have to be. It's an insult for Republicans to stand up there and say, well, we would never, we hope that he gets treated with the same respect that we showed Democratic nominees under President Obama. Yeah, you're right. We'll show you the same respect that you showed Merrick Garland.
In fact, here's Mitch McConnell yesterday. I mean, it's a wonder lightning doesn't strike him dead on the spot. Mitch McConnell.
What I would expect from our Democratic friends is the nominee be handled similarly to President Clinton's 2 nominees in his first term and President Obama's 2 nominees in his first term.
And what about Mitch McConnell, President Obama's one nominee in his second term? What? The second term doesn't count? The last year of the presidency doesn't count? It's outrageous. I mean, it is, as Senator Jeff Merkley, our good friend, has been in the studio with us several times, said yesterday, this is a stolen seat. They stole this seat, and we're not going to allow them to steal it back. No, just Democrats cannot do it. Pat Toomey yesterday said something like, well, we never showed such obstructionism.
Get out of here.
On our side. I mean,
That's
Toomey
that's
from
crazy.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. I mean, liar, liar, pants on fire.